Let's bring in the panel. Jeff Toobin, Laura Coates, Maggie Haberman's back, Mary Catherine Ham. New York Times op-ed columnist Charles Blow is here. So is Steve Hall, who ran Russia operations at the CIA. Joining us as well is Jeffrey Lord. The pressure's off because Comey's gone?
Because Comey's gone.
I mean, that's a
yes,
reading.
and that is our understanding of what he said, based on the reading of this document, and what a defender of the president's argues is that what he was referring to was the fact that Comey, and Spicer's statement essentially says it, is that Comey was a grandstander, and all of which the president has said, and he was politicizing this investigation. And that made it really hard, and this investigation's going on regardless. I'm not saying that is actually what he meant, but that is what he said.
But let's be clear. The president can say what he would like to say. However, there are also legal consequences of his statements.
And that is the biggest issue.
Right, and if you have fired the FBI director who's leading the investigation into whether or not you or your campaign members have colluded, you cannot be excused simply by the nature of the office that you hold. The words still have significance politically and especially legally. And so to give a carte blanche and say, well, I'm the president, this may have been politicking, this may have been something different, it's a very different turn and distinction when you have obstruction of justice overhead, interfering with witnesses or tampering or trying to intimidate them in some way. These have consequences, and which is why I think the president perhaps should follow what the Miranda says, which is you have the right to remain silent.
Well,
do that.
But talk about ways to remove a president, and I do think that has not just political backlash potential, but just it's unhealthy for the country, because there were many people who did elect this president, and they did it for legit reasons. I disagreed with their conclusion, but they didn't feel that they had a better option, and this is what happened, and particularly on that blue wall space that the Democrats lost. And so I think making those folks feel more alienated by jumping to the punch is a very bad idea, but this is another self-inflicted White House thing. They're leaky to their own detriment. You can look up impeachment, you can learn about impeachment, you can worry about impeachment. Don't tell everybody you're doing it, because it gives everyone license to talk more about impeachment, which I don't think we're there, and I don't think it's healthy.
And remember, impeachment is really premature at this stage because we don't have the other I word, a full investigation at this moment in time. The reason you have a special counsel, the reason you're having this, the reason you have talk of obstruction of justice is because we want to have a full investigation. It's not about is there and a Dr. Seuss soliloquy. It's about the idea of whether or not their investigation is complete yet. What happened? Who knew it? Who did what? When did they do it? Why is it important? There's the fact-finding mission of Congress, and then there's the criminal investigation that will tell us, excuse me, is there a problem? Should there be an impeachment proceeding going on? We're not there because we haven't had the full opportunity for an investigation, which is really the key of this entire thing.
All of which is true, certainly, but we do have a special counsel appointed. That's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And, Barack Obama went 8 years without anything like this happening. This is 120 days. I mean, so yes, impeachment is premature.
Why is that?
But this is not just, idle talk at this point. There is reason to be very concerned about the propriety of what went on in this White House.
Oh, absolutely. But I think we're saying the same thing in the sense that I think before you can really have a fruitful discussion on impeachment and the removal of the President of the United States or any person, we have the same deference we give to people who are not the President of the United States, and you should as a prosecutor, right? To say, what are the facts here? He's not immune from being criticized or being speculated as having done something wrong, but neither is the common person having the decency to say, listen, let's have an investigation first.
Laura, one of the things that a former official told, I think it was Gloria Borger in this new story that CNN was breaking tonight with Pamela Brown, was that the Flynn-Russia relationship was viewed as a 5-alarm fire from early on. Does that factor into... I assume that factors into Mueller's investigation. Mueller's investigation is far-reaching. That would clearly be something he would be focusing on.
Absolutely. The dragnet is quite large, and that's the directive of the nature of his work. And although it's true that maybe this international trip will do a lot of good politically speaking, it will do nothing to curtail the FBI investigation or Mueller's overall achievements or overall goals in the investigation. And there's a very big reason for that, because they have to have a simultaneous parallel investigation going on. For every accomplishment, there will still be this cloud of suspicion. In order to alleviate that, you actually have to complete the investigation. So yes, it's true, there may be some short gains, politically speaking, but you will always have, in the words of Andy McCabe last week, the FBI never curtails its investigations. And Robert Mueller's appointment will only buttress that particular investigation. So, yes, it was a 5-alarm fire then. They were trying to put out feelers to figure out what they had investigative-wise. It has continued now that you have the confluence of all these other factors to say there is some smoke and a 5-alarm fire coming from that.
I want to go to you, Laura Coates, former federal prosecutor, on this key question of obstruction of justice. Looking at it now, is there evidence based on what you've seen and heard?
The pendulum certainly has shifted in the direction of obstruction of justice. And remember, obstruction is a speaking-based crime primarily. The things that you're saying actually define your conduct and demonstrate whether you are trying to intimidate or interfere or meddle with in some way or say anything to undermine the ability of the investigation to go forward. And so what you're seeing here is a pattern of speech by the president that gives the contextual clues that makes prosecutors salivate. And the reason for that is it's so rare you're going to have the low-hanging fruit. We talk about a smoking gun in terms of evidence. Well, you've got smoking tweets here. You've got smoking statements that happen every hour on the hour, either defiantly as a knee-jerk response or in an effort to defend himself in some interview. But either way, you've got the possibilities coming together of saying, listen, we didn't have low-hanging fruit before. We didn't have the direct evidence. Now we've got statements that are being made that show that it's not about double talk, whether you fired Comey because of a political motivation or to impede the resurrection investigation or for a benign reason. But that pendulum keeps shifting back towards that very high bar of obstruction of justice when you have more indications of actual intent to do precisely what was done.
Right. Many of them coming from the president's own public statements and tweets, as you say.